So get this, a rocket company just made an absolutely massive offer for what on the surface looks like, well, just a text editor. But this story isn't really about rockets, and it's not even about the editor. It's about a high-stakes chess game to control the future of how all software is built. Okay, let's break this down.
$60 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's a valuation bigger than most companies in the Fortune 500. I mean, it's a completely staggering figure that should immediately tell you, okay, something way, way bigger is going on here.
And that's the real mystery, right? Why would a company like xAI, SpaceX's sister company, put that kind of price tag on a code editor? The answer, it turns out, is a masterclass in strategic thinking about where the real power in AI is going to be.
And just look at this growth trajectory. I mean, this is not normal. This isn't your typical startup curve. This is a rocket ship. This is what happens when a company quietly solves a massive problem that everyone else is still banging their heads against, and the biggest players in the world suddenly realize it.
So before we can even talk about the deal, you have to understand what Cursor actually is and why developers are so obsessed with it. To its users, it feels completely different from other AI coding tools. This is not just a glorified autocomplete. And this quote just nails it. It's the perfect way to describe the experience. You can give it a really high-level command, something like add authentication to the login flow. And instead of just suggesting a line or two of code, it goes and touches 8 different files. It updates your controllers, it changes your middleware, it even goes and fixes the tests for you. You just see a clean preview of all the changes, you click apply, and poof, it's done.
But here's the real kicker, the part that's so interesting. Cursor uses the exact same AI models you can get anywhere else. GPT-4, Claude, you name it. So if the AI brain is the same, why is the result so much smarter, so much more useful? Answering that one question, that's the key to the entire $60 billion valuation. You see, the secret isn't in the AI model itself. It's in how Cursor solves this one fundamental, massive limitation that every single large language model has when it comes to understanding code. You could almost call it AI's blind spot. So every AI model has this thing called a context window. The easiest way to think about it is like short-term memory. It's the maximum amount of text and information the AI can look at one time to understand what you're asking it to do. And that memory, it's actually pretty small. And there's the problem. You can't just feed your company's entire code base, all those millions of lines of code, into an AI. It would just choke. Even the biggest, most powerful models can't handle it. The real skill, the thing that separates a junior developer from a senior one, is knowing which 3 or 4 files are the only ones that matter for any given task. The whole game is figuring out how to give the AI just the right tiny slice of code it needs. And this right here is where Cursor's magic comes in. It has this incredibly sophisticated process for understanding your code base, so it can act like the perfect assistant for the AI model. Let me show you how it works. Okay, so instead of just blindly stuffing code into the AI, Cursor's process is a lot more like a senior engineer prepping a task for a junior. First, it parses all of your code into logical chunks, functions, classes, things like that. Then it does something called vectorizing, which is really just a fancy way of turning the meaning of your code into numbers so a computer can work with it. Then when you ask a question, it searches for the code with the closest meaning, expands out to find all the connections a human engineer would look for, and only then does it hand the AI this perfect, concise little package to work on. That search step is absolutely critical. A normal keyword search for the word login would totally miss a file named authenticate.ts. But Cursor's search isn't looking for words, it's looking for meaning. It understands that login and authenticate are related concepts, so it finds the right file every single time. It's basically like having a Google for your codebase, but one that searches by ideas, not just keywords. Oh, and for any developers or companies listening, this part is a really big deal. Cursor does all this heavy lifting locally. Your actual source code never ever leaves your computer. The only thing that gets sent out are these anonymized, encrypted mathematical representations of your code, which just completely solves huge security and privacy concerns right out of the gate. Okay, so we get it. The technology is brilliant, but that still doesn't quite explain the $60 billion price tag. So now we get to the real strategy, the 3-layer master plan for why a company like xAI is making this move. Reason number one, this is a shortcut right to the top. Right now, xAI's model, Grok, isn't really the first choice for serious developers. You've got OpenAI with Copilot, Anthropic with Claude. By buying Cursor, xAI doesn't have to spend years trying to catch up. They just instantly acquire the best product on the market, one that already has Fortune 500 customers, and they become a dominant player overnight.
Reason number two is even bigger and frankly a lot more strategic. It's about owning what might be the most valuable piece of real estate in the entire world of artificial intelligence.
So you can think of the AI world in 3 layers. Down at the bottom, you've got the infrastructure, the GPUs. SpaceX is already building a monster computer cluster there. In the middle, you have the AI models themselves, which, let's be honest, are slowly becoming a commodity. But at the very top, you have the interface. That's where the developer lives and breathes every single day. And whoever owns the interface, the remote control for the AI, they own the distribution, they own the workflow, they own the data. That layer, that is the ultimate prize.
And finally, reason number 3 is all about the story. We all know SpaceX is heading for what could be one of the biggest IPOs in history. And a deal like this completely transforms the narrative for investors. See, Cursor isn't just some cool tool. It's an incredibly valuable business. By acquiring it, the IPO story changes completely. SpaceX is no longer just a rocket company. Suddenly, it's a vertically integrated AI platform that also happens to launch rockets. And that, my friends, commands the completely different and much, much higher valuation from Wall Street.
So when you put it all together, this deal isn't really about a text editor. It's a calculated, brilliant move to win the developer market, control the most valuable layer of the entire AI stack, and reshape the story for a historic IPO. And it really leaves us with a fascinating question to think about. Is the future of AI going to be defined by who builds the most powerful engine or by who builds the best steering wheel?